So you want to buy a HT truck, but you don't tow. And you're wondering if you should or if you shouldn't. I can definitely shed some light onto that conversation. And if that's what you're asking, you are in the right place. Let's get right to it. So I daily drive a 2023 Ford Super Duty F350, 7.3 gas with 373 gears. Crew cab, short bed. Boy, there's a lot of things when you talk about trucks. There's just like 1,000 words here. So I like daily driving an HT truck, and I've been doing it for a very, very long time, and I don't plan on changing it. The reason is because it does a lot of things for me. Let's talk about what an HT truck does. First of all, you may want to buy it just because you want it, and that is entirely legitimate. They definitely have a nice stance. They look good. They have a commanding presence on the road, and for the upcharge of getting into a Super Duty over an F-150, it's not as much as you might think. And I would like to interject something right here. It may be in the long run, a vehicle that is going to depreciate less for the exact same amount of mileage and abuse. So that is a very good reason, in my opinion, to buy an HT truck. In my opinion, F-150s lose their value incredibly fast. I've seen nothing but that be the case. And it would concern me if I was going out and buying an F-150 to keep it for any period of time, to be honest with you. But I've seen very painful 3 to 5 year losses, and especially after 10 years, they have lost a substantial percentage of their original asking price, where a Super Duty after 5 or 10 years is still holding fairly strong, or for sure stronger than a half ton. That I have seen half tons in general, whether it be Ram or whether it be GM, I've seen them depreciate fairly rapidly. So that is a cautionary thing that I would like to share with you for sure. Why would somebody want to buy an HT truck if they don't tow? Well, there's several really good reasons. And first of all, I don't know you. I don't know what you're trying to get into. But let me make an inference. Generally, people, let's just say we've gotten the you want it out of the way, okay? And I'm all for that. It's a free country. Whatever you want to drive I'm totally all for that. Let's talk about some good reasons to daily drive a HT truck. When it's, and we've already got the financial reason out of the way. I think that they hold their value very well, and I don't find them to be a super burden to buy over a half ton. I think you're getting a lot of money for your price. Let's talk about that lot of money for a second. In general, the stance of a Super Duty is massive compared to a half ton, and also they clear a lot of tire with their factory suspension. So that matters a lot to you, because I can put 35 12.5 mud tires on my truck stock. In fact, if you have the right offset, and for instance a tremor wheel, my understanding is that I can run a 37 12.5 on an 18-inch tremor wheel and expect to maybe have minor rub on the radius arm, depending on how much sidewall lug. Like for instance, if you buy a Nitto mud grappler, they have huge sidewall lugs. My assumption is those are going to rub. But if you buy a KO3 or a Falcon AT4 or AT4W or some all-terrain of many kinds, or a mud tire that doesn't have quite such substantial side lugs, the KM2 was really good for that. I like the less aggressive sidewall lugs on a KM2 because they just worked well on factory height vehicles. You could put a lot of tire under there without a lot of downside. The KM3 is a similar ballgame. If you look at those sidewall lugs and you pick ones that don't stick out a half inch or 3/4 of an inch from the tread side, or an inch in some cases, you're going to be able to fit a decent amount of tire under these things stock. If you want to put 35 12.5s on an F-150 and still be able to turn the thing, you're probably going to need to have a 3 or 4 inch lift. You may even choose, I've seen people run 6-inch lift with 35s. And yeah, that looks a little bit funky, but the thing is that it gives ample room for tire articulation, so that you get full use out of your suspension and your steering when you do that. Another phenomenal reason is because these vehicles are made to tow and haul in a relatively excessive amount of weight. If you're not towing and hauling, there's almost nothing you can do that's going to challenge the oil cooling system, the water cooling system, or the transmission cooling system, or power steering cooling system for that matter. That's a really important one too. We'll talk about that in just a second. But the cooling systems in general on these HT trucks are really beefy. If you want to run 37s and drive it every single day of the week like that, the downside to it is basically almost nothing. They already have the axle ratios in general to take care of that already, where a lot of half tons have 342 or 323 or 308 rear gears, or gears in general, and it's going to be an issue if you run 35s or 37s. So not only will they fit a big tire up front, an HD truck, but the whole driveline is designed to handle high abuse. They didn't necessarily design it for 37s with the tremor. I'm sure that they had it in mind, but keep in mind, whenever you modify a vehicle from the factory form, know that you may need to armor up the cooling system if you want to then also tow to the truck's fullest potential. So let's just say, and I'm sorry I chose to film this right now, and there's a reason why I'm doing it, and I'm sorry about these headlights, guys. I didn't realize how much glare that they were going to provide. We'll make this quick. For instance, my truck came stock with 373 gears, like I said. Let's just say I wanted to lift it and run 38s. That's generally a good first step. 37s might work, but honestly, like I said, you can stick 37s on stock. So let's just say you put a 3-inch Carly system on it. You run either 37 13.5s, or you want to run 38s, 12.5s, or something like that, okay? Let's just say you want to do that. This truck's rated for 18,000 pounds and 4,381 pounds of payload. If I want to then haul the full potential and tow the full potential on 38s, I may need to, first of all, the best thing you can do on an HD truck is gear it properly. That is a problem for these new trucks that have axles that just came out. Buy the bigger gears in the first place. If off-roading is what you're trying to do, if you're getting a 7.3, get 430 gears. If you're getting a diesel, get the 355s, so that way you have everything you need to have, or whatever the other brands offer, which isn't much. Ford at least gives you the option there. But get those bigger gears so that way, or higher numerical value gears, so that you have already a driveline ready to accept these bigger tires, if that's what you know you want to do. So keep that in mind if you're going to tow, say, 18,000 pounds and have a substantial amount of weight in the truck, and you're on 38s. Keep in mind you might need to have some more gears to help you out with doing that, and with an older vehicle, it's easier to say, oh, I'm going to slap in 488s and all this other stuff. You're not going to buy that right now for these axles. So know that going in, that's a little bit of a problem that exists right now. We kind of have to accept that for right now, but that is not the perfect world or the norm. Power steering. So power steering oil is forgotten a little bit, I think, how important it is and how hot it gets. If you're going to off-road one of these vehicles, power steering cooling is something that you need to contend and think about. An HD truck already has a substantial power steering oil cooling system. And if you have a vehicle with Hydro Boost, you already have a really substantial power steering cooling system. So that is something that is very nice about HD trucks, is you get your engine and your transmission nice and cool, and engine oil stays cool even when you're abusing it. But you also have that advantage of your power steering not getting hot, which is going to make you go through power steering pumps all the time, and all in general cause lots of issues down the road. The suspension and wheel bearings also, all of those components are much bigger and much, much stronger. Your wheel bearings, your ball joints, your tie rods, all those things are going to be far less irritated with you when you're running a big, heavy off-road tire and potentially a big, heavy off-road heavy-duty wheel, which wheels, I don't know if you guys have ever carried a wheel, like maybe a 17 by 8.5, or God forbid a 20 by 8.5 or 20 by 9. They are heavy. And when they are spinning and they're moving around and they're getting impacted, all those things, your ball joints and everything else are having to absorb those impacts and loads, and your wheel bearings, of course. And if you have an offset to them where you're putting extra load on everything because you have the wheel poked out a little bit, you're going to be wearing parts far more often. One of the biggest weak links I see with half-ton trucks being used as off-roading related rigs is they generally have rack and pinion steering, and those systems tend to be very disappointed with your choices. The other thing is CV axles and U-joints in general, drive shafts and whatnot, and the transfer cases are much smaller. All those driveline bits, besides the fact everything is being cooled better on an HD truck, all the parts are bigger on a HD truck, and it makes a big difference where you can go and take basically 100% stock Super Duty. You can most likely put bigger tires on it pretty decent size, and use it the way you want to and intend to for years, and you most likely are not going to have to deal with major issues. I'll tell you right now, everyone I know that has Dodge half tons or Ford F-150s or GMs or Toyotas, it doesn't matter. As soon as they go putting a lift on, as soon as they go putting 35-12.5s on and different wheels and all this stuff, they start running into regular service issues where they're dealing with U-joints or CV axles or steering-related problems every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. It is not uncommon at all, especially if you're wheeling fairly decently. Note too, the frame is much stronger on an HD truck, and it's going to provide excellent locations in the hitch too for recovery operations, mounting a winch, all that stuff. The chain is only as good as the weakest link, and on a vehicle, your frame is the weakest link. It is very easy to bend the frame on a current half-ton truck. Now, I'm not trying to hate on half-tons, but this is very much a pro HD truck video, so hear me out. Very, 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 very commonly, I see people who are into overlanding, or they're doing overlanding where they're doing it really hardcore, where the vehicle is kitted out where they could survive in it for weeks, and they got a shower system on the roof and all this stuff, and maybe even a porta-john on board or something. Like they really got something that they can live in. Or maybe it's just something where, you crash in the truck in the bed and you bring along some coolers and a grill so you can cook for the weekend. Like, there's a whole spectrum to the whole overlanding thing, and it's great no matter what you're in. I know my dad camped all around the UP in an older classic car back in the day, like in the 80s. He drove all the way around the UP, brought a tent in the trunk, and that's great stuff. And today we're kind of doing a similar thing, but now we have vehicles that are kitted out for it. And when you do that, you will find the limit of the weight-bearing capacity of your vehicle fast. Tacoma owners and Jeep owners commonly find the limitations of their chassis and their suspensions real quick, and they learn that they are overweight and their vehicle really, really feels it. If you put 1,000 pounds in a Jeep or in a Tacoma of stuff, let me tell you, you can feel it. If you put 1,000 pounds in this truck right here, dude, I don't even think you feel it. It is amazing the difference from both the driveline perspective, the performance, fuel economy, and all that stuff, and the vehicle handling in general. It is crazy how these things bear weight so well. Now, this truck specifically is a single wheel gas F-350, as I've said, and it has a 4,380 pound payload capacity. I hope you're not finding a way to overload this truck when you're overlanding, because you may as well have brought your house. Most apartments don't have 4,381 pounds of stuff in them. So, know that if you're into overlanding, this is a really good option for you. And I would highly recommend a single wheel F-350, potentially with a 7.3 gas. And why do I say that? Because when you bring a diesel along and you buy a diesel, you got to deal with DEF, you got to deal with making sure that you get clean diesel and all that kind of stuff. And you're going to have... There's some downsides here. We'll make some more detailed videos. Maybe we can go explore some of these newest 6.7 Power Strokes. I had a 6.7 Power Stroke previously. I love 6.7 Power Strokes. The reality is that there's a lot of places where a 6.7 Power Stroke can go wrong. There is a lot of fittings. There's a lot of hoses. There's a lot of stuff hanging down underneath the truck that can be ripped off. Know that there are a lot of Achilles heels to a diesel. All those little sensors that all have little teeny wires that all will shut your truck down into limp mode. Just know when you're going into it, and I'm not a diesel hater, I love diesels. The reality is that this Band-Aid crap that the government has made these automakers put on can work heavily against you in the conversation that we're having right now. If you're running over the road and you basically don't ever have to, go do any of that, dusty roads, muddy roads, driving through water, all that stuff, and it's probably, they basically run the life of the truck. I've seen very good things out of OEM exhaust systems. I've also seen people that hit deer and ruin their whole DPF and the truck's in limp mode because they ran over a deer or a turkey and the thing screwed up a whole bunch of sensor lines all the way down underneath the truck, and now the truck's in limp mode trying to come home, or they ripped one of the DEF line or something like that and the vehicle's now in limp mode, or they popped a hole in their DEF tank and now the truck's in limp mode because they don't have any more DEF and they got a hole in their tank. So there's some issues there. Know that going into it, and know that a gas 7.3 Ford option is going to get you the HD truck with the engine that drives and feels like you, or you're not missing the diesel. and you have a whole lot less crap to go wrong. Just keep that in mind. So, overlanders, we kind of talked about you a little bit. I had a Power Wagon before. It had like 2,018 pounds of payload, I think. Or maybe it was 1,918 pounds of payload. Whatever it is, it was not very much. And it was really, really easy to overload that truck. And that's usually a first step for people, is going from a half-ton that maybe isn't decked out for off-roading to going into the Power Wagon that is definitely a legit off-roading setup from the factory. The problem is that you can overload that truck really quickly. Now, does it matter? That's the last part of this conversation, really, is does the weight matter? Well, the truck isn't going to fall apart underneath you necessarily, especially not in the short run. There's enough buffer built in. Let's just say you have, in a Jeep, you have 900 pounds of payload. If you've got 1,000 pounds of stuff in it, the truck's not just going to fall apart. You may, however, run into situations where your brakes feel inadequate, where the handling of the vehicle feels inadequate because the suspension is pressed down enough that the vehicle doesn't quite handle quite the way you want it. You could run into oil cooling issues in the long run. You could run into engine cooling issues in the long run, and we all know that 3.6 Pentastars do not like when they overheat, and no engine likes when they overheat. But I found that 3.6 Pentastars, if you overheat them, you're screwed. You are new engine time, or at minimum decking the heads and putting new heads on. So know that going in, that the physical difference. It's not necessarily the truck's going to fall apart, but you're going to feel it. If you're overloading a vehicle, you can feel when you get up to the limit. One little recommendation I can tell you is that if you put, say, load range Ds or load range Es on, and you don't need load range Es, but hear me out. They might be cheaper. You might be getting a better deal on a load range E because they make a piss ton of them. Let's just say you want 285 70R17s, and you might find that a Duratrack in that size load range E is actually cheaper than getting the load range C option. Depends on location. See if that... I had to let a cop go by. I didn't do anything. Somebody else did something. So, if you go ahead and put some a little bit better tires on your vehicle, if you are up in that area, a lot of times Jeep will have load range Cs or Tacoma or whatever. And if you're loading them up to the point where the tires are at or near their max payload, if you go up to the next size tire, you may gain a little bit of handling stability out of them. However, something you're not going to change is the brakes. The most common thing that people end up doing is putting power stops or whatever other aftermarket brake options are out there for their Jeep or Tacoma or whatever the heck you're building. It is always a limitation. People commonly are putting disc brake conversions on things, or putting HD sized or super or 8-lug sized brakes on their, say Dana 44 axles or whatnot. There's just tons of things you can do. Jeep's got big brake kits. I think we kind of beat the dead horse there. Brakes are a huge limitation of the vehicle, and you can't snap your finger and change that. You are getting massive brakes when you go to an HD truck, and you're getting massive cheap brakes. They are so easy to change, pads and discs. They're so cheap on an HD truck because they're heavily mass produced. The cost of just getting these things up front, you just go buy an XL trim. I have an STX. I love this trim. It's like a half a step up from an XL, and I have everything that I could ever want in this truck. And the MSRP of this truck in 2023 was $61,800 or something like that. I challenge you to find a half-ton new that was anything less than 50. Generally, they're 52 to 54. That's a problem. Jeeps, Rubicons are now getting close to 60. They're not cheap. The Tacomas are not cheap. The Tundras are not. None of these things are cheap. You're already going to spend, if you're buying new, you're already going to spend $50,000 most likely to get anything that most of you guys are searching for. Now, of course, play the used market, find, whatever's going to work for you. If you're going to be doing a lot of traveling and things like that with your unloaded or your non-towing vehicle, I would recommend that you buy new or newer. And I say that because if you live in, I live in the Detroit area of Michigan, okay? If I was to be traveling all the time with my family out west or whatever, I don't need to have my vehicle break down, because I can assure you the cost of a tow when you're remote from home, and then the inconvenience of getting it to a dealership, who is then knowing that they're going to be a captive audience to them with a broken vehicle, or worse, a fix-it shop. Obviously, I sound like I think everyone's dishonest. The problem is a lot of people are dishonest, and they take advantage of people who are in need, as opposed to helping those who are in need. So I think that's unfortunate. So do what you can to help people out who are in need moving forward. That opportunity for a breakdown, buying 100 or 120,000 mile used 2023 Super Duty, for instance, it might sound like a good idea on paper to get a cheap truck, but you might really regret that choice. You might, or maybe you won't. Maybe it's a really good. The more something gets driven, sure, you can have wear, but what you definitely are going to have is frequent fluid changes, and in general, all the parts are going to be moving around and not developing rust. So there's two sides to that coin. So keep that in mind. If you enjoyed the video, let me know. If you have any thoughts or commentary, let me know. And if you are in search for a vehicle that you don't plan on towing heavy with, but you think that an HD truck will work very well for you, let me know. Oh, and I forgot one really important point. And I always forget this because you can't really build my truck quite yet because the M235 and the 11.6 Sterling doesn't have any aftermarket parts available yet to do anything with it. But hear me out. So an HD truck, let's just say you don't have to be getting a new truck. A lot of people are looking at Ford Excursions right now because Overlanding is so popular, and Excursions offer that heavy-duty truck offering with an SUV. HD Suburbans, or not, they don't call them HD, I call them HD Suburbans. 8-lug Suburbans, 2500 Suburbans, and older Super Duties are very common, older Rams, whatever. It is so easy to get parts for those axles and drivelines, and it is so easy to get, all the brake parts you ever want. And when you want to build the axles are already beefy. Even a Dana 50 is pretty darn beefy and pretty darn reliable. I've never been able to break mine, even literally wheel hopping in a sand dune for like 2.5 miles. The U-joints that were in it 10 years ago are the same U-joints that are in the front of the truck right now. It's amazing how reliable the Dana 50 is, and they get a lot more hate than they really deserve, in my opinion. But these HD trucks already come with rock-solid drivelines. They come with usually safe and rock-solid steering. One caveat I learned with my Ram, my 3rd-gen Ram, is when I lifted it and I still had the Y-style steering, or T-style, whatever the heck, the original steering. When you flex the truck, you had changes in tow side for side because the crossover went straight over, and then the one for the left hooked into the middle of that crossover. So when things tipped and turned around, it was a pretty stupid idea, as opposed to having a direct crossover from left to right, and then you control the right knuckle, and the right knuckle controls the left, like on a normal steering system. This was so dangerous. When I lifted my truck, dude, it felt like when you went over a bump or the axle articulated, the truck was going to drive right in the ditch. So that's one caveat, but like, for instance, my Excursion has never been a problem. It has the OEM steering system that came on it with a pitman drop. So in general, these are very rock solid. Axles, transfer cases, drive lines, the transmissions are rock solid. You don't need to do extensive modification to do what should be pretty normal acts, which are going off-road and, reasonable wheeling, not abusing it too hard, trying to avoid the wheel hop. When you get stuck, pull winch cable, have someone to pull you out. Don't beat the tar out of the truck just to get more stuck. Those common sense operations when you're off-road. Picking your lines so you're not beating the tar out of your vehicle, those kind of things. In general, an HD truck really wheels well. And for their size, they really wheel up well. And on the topic of size, sure, they have longer wheelbases in general, unless you get a regular cab and you're comparing that to a 4-door F-150, for instance. You can still turn into parking lots fine. You can still go do all your shopping. If you need to park in the front row, you might need to work a little bit harder. Say if you're going to a CVS or whatever, parking in the very front of the parking lot, it might be a little tight of a swing and you might look pretty stupid, and you may want to consider not doing that, but you can do it. So consider those things. I love my HD truck. I love daily driving it. And if I didn't tow, I would still have an HD truck because I need to have the strength that the Driveline offers. And even just pulling out at my buddy once or twice a year when he makes a mistake, and get stuck, it's worth having the HD Driveline to back me up. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you want to see similar things to this, and hopefully getting out and doing some wheeling. I've been neglecting my my whole lifestyle here. I have hardly done any wheeling lately. I've been doing a lot of trail riding lately, but not a lot of wheeling of trucks. So we need to get back to that. All of you guys take care of yourself. I appreciate you. Subscribe if you want to see more videos. Like and comment if you enjoyed the video and let me know how I did. If you don't like the video, comment and let me know what I did wrong, and I'll do a better job in the future. Take care all and have a wonderful day.